Hello and welcome to my multimodal final presentation. Today I will be talking about women's treatment and oppression centralized within Afghanistan. My agenda today is to talk about my introduction, treatment of women, human rights, fear, conformity, and non-conformity, changes, and my conclusion. So this is my introduction. I am Haley Lamb and I am a junior, majoring in English and communications. Complex problems are problems that have multiple ways of viewing them and multiple solutions. They are more than a yes or no question, and they often embalm multiple different sides. My complex problem again is the treatment of women in Afghanistan, and this matters because there's not very much attention that is centralized within this problem, and there needs to be awareness brought to the light. And my audience today, I'm focusing on those who are about middle age, and my main target is those in power, either government, somebody that can really make a change and help these women within these countries. The first problem I want to address is the history of Afghanistan. Afghanistan, in the last 20 years, there's been nothing but war. The Western being the United States, have interfered, but there was removal of the Taliban. Even though there's removal of the Taliban, there has still been women oppression. And actually, when the Taliban was in place, women actually had more rights. Moving forward to about the 80s, there was refugee camps focused on male dominance or authority over women, and treatment of them was horrible. Women were actually involved more when the Taliban was around, and they even received voting rights and were able to become unveiled. Veiling is otherwise known as a hijab, and it ranges from covering the face to covering the hair. It really just depends on the religion and what they prefer. But their choice, they got a choice of whether they wanted to wear it or not. Since the war, poverty has been a big threat within Afghanistan, and Afghanistan has known nothing but war. Drought over the last 4 years has really stopped them from becoming successful. But there has been a turnaround with there being more women enrolled in school. Moving on, I'll be talking about the treatment of Afghani women in Afghanistan. Through marriage, domestic violence and verbal violence are a very common practice. 80% of suicide in Afghanistan are done by women. Most women are arranged or forced into marriages either for money, mainly for money. The government doesn't help if a man is accused of abuse. Typically, he is not charged or criminally processed. There's a lot of death and injury. Most Afghanistan women are illiterate, and even though there is an increase in schooling for these Afghani women, most are still not in school, and this is ranked as the worst place for women. The next pressing issue is fear, and how the government and the Taliban have instilled this in these Afghanistan women. Even though the United States and Western civilization has come in and helped eradicate the Taliban, they are still prominent within the society. Whilst women have been protesting for their rights, they have been beaten, electrocuted, and called vicious names and verbally abused. The Taliban claims that they would like women to work, yet they force them into subordination and have reclaimed that claim. Women all around Afghanistan have created safe houses for those trying to escape child marriages, abuse, amongst other horrible encounters Afghanistan women have gone to, yet the government has revoked those and have massively closed them, so they have nowhere to turn. The Taliban has continued to instill fear in these women. The next horrible thing I would like to discuss is the lack of human rights that women in Afghanistan hold. Most women in Afghanistan suffer from some mental health disorder, most prominently being depression. There's a lack of health care and help for women. It is noted 57 to 80% have little to no access to health care. And in birth, every 30 minutes, a woman dies in Afghanistan. Oftentimes, a trained professional is needed to assist in birth, but most are practiced or done by family members. And many women die from anemia and blood loss that is experienced, but they are unable to get help, typically due to financials and all the hardships just the country has gone through. Even they've been in war for the last 20 years. America has bombed them. They are just still suffering, and in turn, women are suffering and having little to no access to health care and basic human rights and decency. This next pressing issue we will be talking about is conformity of Afghanistan women and what non-conformity could mean. The U.S. has since retreated and the Taliban has taken over, which is meaning the capital punishment. Negotiations have been made via Hillary Clinton in order to help these women, but nothing has really stuck, and the Taliban is still in control. The Taliban has since put social restrictions on women, and they have become dependent on their families for care, money, their livelihood. Warfare has affected more than others and has put a damper in mental health and physical health and their safety as a whole. Many of these women have experienced trauma, and they are now being held to a standard of whipping for infidelity, even though the marriage was forced, and even going to the drastic measures of stoning them, which leads to their death if they are disobeying their husbands and being non-conforming to the standards that the Taliban and their religion have set for them, even if they wish to no longer follow them. I included this quote: "They made me invisible, shrouded in non-being, a shadow, no existence, made silent and unseeing, denied of freedom, confined to my cage, tell me how to handle my anger and my rage." This is a poem posted in the nation's Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The last point I want to make is the changes that Afghani women are making. Small but slow but surely, they are now joining higher vocations, engineering, civil engineering, going to school, building the skills they need to live on their own and no longer be set to the standards that they no longer wish to follow. Although this is being regressed and the Taliban is taking over more and changing, some of these women are not following their narration that is set forth for them and becoming their own person. Treatment of Afghanistan women is non-acceptable and is horrible. They are struggling from mental health, suicide, capital punishment, verbal and domestic abuse. And so are their children. Children are being forced to marry for money, and the country is war and grief-stricken. Women have lack of human rights, health care, and are being abused every day. Changes need to happen within this country, whether that's the U.S. getting involved, which that doesn't seem to be working, or the Taliban being exonerated, which hasn't worked in the past. But something needs to work for these women to get the help that they need and the basic human rights that they deserve. Thank you.